So today we're going to talk about dividing integers. The good news, it's exactly the same as multiplying. You're just going to divide instead. I want to continue with our graphic organizer. If you have yours, you can continue filling it out. Otherwise, you can just watch what I'm doing here. I will post a clean copy of this in Google Classroom under the reference section so that it's available to you throughout the year. So we've talked about addition and subtraction. For multiplication, we're going to say that you count the number of negative signs. And then if you compare them, if you compare all of them, your answer is positive. If you have something left unpaired, then your answer is negative. You might use the finger trick that I talked about yesterday on our call. And if you remember my story, pick your fingers carefully when you're doing this. So when you count the number of negative signs, you hold up one finger for each, and then you try to pair them off. And if you have any fingers unpaired, for example, if you have 3 signs or 5 signs or only 1 sign, there's going to be a finger that isn't paired, and that means that you're going to have a negative answer. The other way that you might remember these is something called the odd-even rule. If the finger trick isn't your thing. And that just says if you have an odd number of signs, like 1 or 3 or 5 signs, then your answer is going to be negative. It's kind of like the finger trick without fingers. Now for division, it's going to be the exact same rules. You're going to count the number of signs in your division problem. And if you have an odd number, 1 or 3 or 5 or 7, then you will have a negative answer. And if you have an even number of negative signs, like 2 or 4 or 6, then you will have a positive answer. So the rules are the same, you just have to multiply or divide. Now that you know all 4 operations, some of your problems are going to start mixing operations. So I want to do a few examples to show you how you kind of keep this all straight. So I'm going to be on page 246 in your textbook. If you want to follow along, you can pause and flip to the page and then come back. We're going to be doing numbers 4, 5, and 6. So number 4 says 15 divided by y. Only one operation, that's good for us. Now, when I look at the directions for that section, it says that y is worth -5. So I will replace, we're going to get multicolored numbers today. I don't know why that happens. We're going to replace the y everywhere it happens with a -5. Maybe, if my pen decides to cooperate. There we go. So I'm going to divide like normal. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And then I count the number of signs. There's only 1 sign, so my answer will be negative. 15 divided by -5 is -3. Okay, let's look at number 5. The original says xy divided by parentheses -10. Now those parentheses are there just to highlight that that is a negative sign so that it's not confused as a subtraction sign, because that would be really weird without another number there. Let's also go back and review that x, y together means multiplication. Remember that for variables, you don't have to have a symbol. Okay, let's talk about some replacement. So x is worth 8, y is worth -5, and then the same divided by -10 will be there. You can see that I did not put a multiplication sign in between the 8 and the -5, and it's really confusing. It looks like a subtraction problem, and it's not supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and put a star or a dot or some kind of multiplication symbol in there to show that it really is multiplication. Okay, so let's go through and do our calculations. 8 times 5, we'll ignore the negative sign for a moment. 8 times 5 is 40, and then 40 divided by 10 is 4. So the digit part of our answer is 4. Go back to the original, and how many negative signs do you count? I see 1, I see 2. They're supposed to be checks. Make them look like checks so they're not confusing. There we go. I see 2 negative signs. Can I partner everything up? Yes, there is nothing left unpartnered, which means my answer will be positive 4. All right, tackle the number part, the calculation part first, and then go back and do the signs. If you think you're going to forget, do the sign part first and then do your calculations. But treat them as separate things to look at. All right, and then look at number 6. We've got x plus y in parentheses divided by parentheses -3. Now, the parentheses on the second part are just to show that that's a negative again. And the first part tells me that they want me to do the x plus y before the division. If you remember back to PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, order of operations, the division is going to get done before the addition if those parentheses weren't there. So let's do our substitution. We've got x is worth 8. We've got y is worth -5. And everything else in the problem stays as it was. I'm not going to put the parentheses down for the -3. Just a personal thing. Now, you've got multiple operations in this with different rules. Our last example, multiply and divide, have the same rules. But for this problem, number 6, we've got addition and we've got division. So you might want to flip back to that chart that you've made. Let's do the parentheses first. By order of operations, I should do the parentheses first. So I have addition. Go to your section on addition. That talks about having the same sign or different signs. So we've got a positive and a negative. Are they the same or are they different? They're different. So what happens when they're different signs? We subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. Which of those numbers had the bigger pile to start with? The 8. Since it was positive, my 3 will be positive. I'll bring down the rest of the problem. Okay, now let's go to our division rules. We're going to divide the way we've always divided. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then I'm going to count the number of signs in that problem. I only see 1 on this particular division problem. We're kind of done with the -5. So the 3 and the -3, there's only 1 sign, which means my answer is negative. Lots of opportunities for you to talk yourself through this. Go back and use that graphic organizer until you really, really feel comfortable with the differences between the operations. If you need any help, I'll be available.